rechargeable.
All right, let's talk about this Starfall Sith themed hilt with exposed crystal chamber here. A lot of cool stuff going on with this hilt. I like it a lot. The button layout's really easy to wield. It's very light and just well balanced and real easy to get to everything with the grip. So let's drop down to the table. We'll talk a little bit more about what went on with the internals. We'll go over a few commands, but then we'll hop back out, show off some blade styles and some other button commands, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you for checking it out. All right, so we're here to talk about this Starfall hilt here that is a Sith theme. This is it has an exposed crystal chamber here with a Shtok V3 neopixel in the emitter. This does take a 7/8 diameter blade. It's programmed for a 32-inch length. Up top here, you've got your blade retention screw, so plenty of depth for your blade. On the back here, just take note that this is the neopixel holder retention screw. Now, while these are different Allen key diameters, the provided Allen key will only affect your blade retention, but if you lose this over time, just make a note that the one that's on the same side as the switch box is the neopixel holder, and that's the one you don't want to touch, because you could loosen the connector holder, and if it moves around, you'll get alignment issues, or you could risk damaging something. So just take in mind. So on the back side, we've got two dome tactile switches. Up top is your activation. At the bottom is your auxiliary. And how we get to everything is we just unscrew the grip. Now, I did design the chassis such that the kill switch is up at the top, so you don't have to fully take the grip off if you're trying to be on the go or like at a con or something where you quickly need to turn on and off the saber. So there's your on switch. So we could just, get it back going and then activate the saber, and you're good to go. But let's take a look at the chassis real quick, talk about the internals. Set this grip off to the side. So here's your chassis design. We've got a Proffie V2. So yeah, on the back side, you got your battery and your kill switch right there. We have a 28mm KR bass speaker, and then this is the provided battery. So just be mindful that, over time, if you're pulling the battery in and out, this chassis is a press fit here, and I did use a little bit of glue to fully secure it. So just don't yank on the battery when you go to put it in. We've got our terminals clearly indicated with a Starfall logo. Top is your positive, rear is your negative, so spring side's your negative. And how we just put the battery in is, what I like to do is just grip with my extra fingers the sides of the chassis as I push down with my index finger. And so that way we're not, yanking on the chassis as we do it. So now when we're ready, we can flip the kill switch here. So let's do that real quick. Again, we get our boot sound, and we have the Starfall font package, so 8 presets. And then the final preset, the 9th, is a battery level indicator. So on that preset, your crystal chamber will demonstrate the battery level in green to red. So green is good, red is low charge. And then along the blade, you'll have a little bubble that goes from the tip of the blade when it's fully charged towards the hilt when it is low in charge. So to advance in the fonts, we just hit the aux switch in the off state. And then we'll get possibly a different animation. Most of the crystal chambers are either going to be a slow pulse in the off state, and then maybe a blinking or something to that effect. And most of them react to blaster blocks, clashes, lightning blocks, all that stuff. So if we're ready, we can throw the grip on, but let me go over a few other things real quick. So the Proffie is also a press fit in the tray. So over time, if you're lifting this up and down to reprogram the board or to get access to the SD card, then you may want to put just a little dab of E6000 on the side the next time you put it down. E6000 is an adhesive that is somewhat impermanent, so to speak, but you do have enough room here to get a 90-degree cable in, so you should never need to lift the battery up and down if that's what you use to program. But just keep that in mind. So the config is on the SD card should you want to use it to make changes in the future. I'm not going to cover any of that. Anything I don't cover in this video, I have a printout here with instructions for the owner. Covers most of the basic features, but there's a link to a website for the FET263 prop file that will go over everything that the Saber can do, and you can learn how to do all the extra features with that. So let's go ahead and put the grip on. And we do have gesture controls, so if you didn't want to use the buttons, you could twist on. Neopixel lighting as you should. Now these are just going to mimic what the main blade's going to do. So if you have like a blade plug-in and you want to swing it around for a little bit just to test out some fonts and stuff like that, you can get some illumination. And for the most part, the crystal chamber will mimic the blade color. So aux to advance. If we want to go backwards, we'll point the hilt down and hit aux. And then to play a track, we have two different modes. We've got track player mode in the off state, which if you're just holding the saber in any direction other than completely upright, you'll start in track player mode. But if you want to play the track that I have designated for each of the fonts in the Starfall library, then you point the hilt straight up, hold the power for 1 second, let go, and you'll get your track, and then same button press for a second to turn it off. Now, if we want track player mode, we can just be in any other hilt orientation, hit the main button for a second. You'll get that little sound effect. It will start immediately playing all of the tracks in alphabetical order. If you want to change them, you just rotate the hilt. So if I want to go backwards, I'll rotate in the left direction. And then if I want to continue playing that while I actually swing the saber around, then hit power. Now I can move, and I'm no longer in the track selection mode, and I can turn my saber on and off. And then once again, just hold power for a second to turn it off. Now, when the blade is on, you won't get in track player mode because holding the button for a second will either do force effects, or once again, if you're in the upright position while the blade is on, you'll only turn on and off the selected track for each preset. And I have done one for each of the sound fonts. There's 8 sound fonts. I did include more free fonts on the SD card, but they're not programmed. So if you want to learn how to do other features with your saber when you go to the website link or anything like that, you've got some extra ones just on there, but that's just there for freebies and for you to learn how to operate the saber. So we'll go through a couple other presets here just so we can see what's going on in the crystal chamber. You can see they respond to blaster blocks, stuff like that.
Hero's Journey.
You can see as most of these are breathing or pulsing, and then now Ruin has a pre-on, which is only accessible with the button press. If you did do a gesture control, which I've programmed twist on and thrust on, I'll demonstrate that here in a second with the blade in. Then you will bypass the pre-on if you use those gesture controls. But again, I'll demonstrate that here in a moment. But let's go ahead and show this one off. So that was the pre-on sound effect, and now you can see it's kind of like going between a red and an orange red. Just a little bit more active than a standard crystal, because it's an unstable blade style.
Reconcile.
This one may not be as visible because the yellow color. Now, if you did want to start the saber in mute, you could just double tap aux. So now you can see it's lighting up, but it's not playing any sounds. So I can throw a demo blade in here to show you some of the effects real quick. Now, again, up top is your blade retention screw. You don't need to put additional pressure, just rest the blade on the pogo pins and then cinch it down with your Allen key here. Okay, so now if I twist on, we can see that light up. A little bit of effects here, but this is programmed for a 32-inch link, so some of the lockups and stuff like that won't show on this demo blade. But we can see like blasters and stuff like that. And if I go back, we'll show that pre-on real quick. So it's a real short pre-on, but like that. So let's go to the last preset here.
Battery level.
Okay, so we got our battery level, which we're at green, which means we're probably in the 90% range. If you did want to get a percentage, you could do hold aux and tap power in the off state.
Battery level, 92%.
And it'll give you a reading. All right, so let's wrap this up and we'll put a blade in and I'll go over a few more commands with the blade in and then we'll call it a day. All right, so we've talked about the internals. We've gone over a few commands. I'm gonna repeat some of those commands here with the blade in so we can demonstrate fully what's going on. Anything I don't cover, again, is on a printout for the owner. There's a lot more involved with Proffie that just you can't get into one video, and they can learn about how to do that themselves. So here we are. One thing to note, to turn the saber on and off, we can either choose power, which will be in just regular operation mode. So, which means clash the saber, you're just gonna get clashes, but if we want blaster blocks, you'll hit aux. But if we wanna get into a lockup, we have to hold either button and then clash the saber. Oops. Until we let go. Now, if we gesture on, we're gonna get into battle mode. Our gesture controls are twist on, like revving up a motorcycle, twist off in the same vein, and then thrust on, which is a sidewards motion. So again, twist on, we're in battle mode, twist off, or thrust on, right? So battle mode, again, just means that we don't have to hold a button to engage lockup. We clash the saber. And so long as we're not moving away, we're gonna stay in lockup. We can sort of move it gently, but when we pull away, we'll get out of the lockup. Now, a lockup is also tip effects like drag if we're pointing down, melt if we're hitting sideways. So let's demonstrate that real quick. Okay. So rotate the saber to change the colors, and you'll notice the longer I hold it, the more animated it gets until I let go. Similarly, if we're pointing down, I'm gonna watch for my ceiling fan. So now we're engaged in a drag. And again, I can move around, but the moment I pull away, we're gonna end our lockup. So again, that's just battle mode. If you don't want to do that, if you'd like to have more control over your saber, then you just button on. You don't do a gesture. Color change. So while the saber is on and the blade is on, hold aux, tap power. You're gonna get that little sound effect to notify that you're in color change mode. And as you rotate the hilt, it will change colors. I've also got it to say the name of the color so that you can remember what you did. You can go
Red, orange, red.
In between. If you hold the button down as you're twisting, you'll get more finite control. It's hard to demonstrate that while I'm talking.
Dark orange.
That's on the printout. You can learn how to do that. But
Gold.
if we don't like that, if we don't want to change the color at all, we accidentally got in, we hit aux to revert.
Reverse.
Or again, hold aux, tap power, get back in.
White.
And then to
Navajo white. Lemon chiffon.
Let's just pick it.
Moccasin. Light cyan. Ice white. Glacier. Silver. Deep pink.
All right, and if we want to accept that color, we'll hit power. And the saber will now remember the next time we turn the saber on. So let me change that back real quick.
Red, green.
Okay, that same button command, holding aux and tapping power, I demonstrated it down below. Hold aux, tap power when the blade is off, but the saber is on, and you'll get a real-time percentage of your battery level.
Battery level, 83%.
So that's a same button command. Okay, so I mentioned track player there's two different ways to play tracks. Holding the saber completely upright will play the designated track that I've assigned for each preset. But if we're not, we'll get into track player mode, which means it's just going to start playing all of the tracks in the track folder alphabetically. And then as you rotate the saber, it will advance in the player. And then if you don't want it to do that and you want it to just keep playing the track that's currently going, you tap power. So we'll do that real quick. Hold power for 1 second. We're in track player mode. And rotate, change the, and then power to accept it. Now we can ignite our blade, and we can turn it off by holding the saber upright and holding power for a second to turn it off. Now, when the blade is on, that same button command, holding power for a second, is a force effect so long as we're not in an upright position. So, again, hold power for a second. We're going to get a force, and you can see it did a little unstable animation for as long as that sound effect played. Now, the Starfall font collection has sometimes a mix of quotes or sound effects. I chose this blade style so we could just get sound effects. Again, that's holding power for 1 second. But if we were completely upright, we're going to play the track. And this one is a little bit subtle. And then again, to turn it off, when the blade is on, hold power for a second. So, same button command, different things happen in the various different states that we're on. The only other thing I think I mentioned down below, Ruin is the only one that has a pre-on, and again, our gesture controls will bypass that pre-on. And again, gesture controls will get us into battle mode, but if we want that pre-on, we have to hit the button. It's really short, but it's a difference. So if I'm just mentioning it so that if you decide to add fonts in the future or switch around some fonts and you borrow these preset designations, you can actually get the pre-on for that sound font if you hit that setting. So that being said, color change is different on the last preset. So okay, so we're on the last sound font / preset, and then our color change for this one, because it is the Cornhorn sound font, only switches between two colors. We're not going to get into the color wheel mode. So that's part of the lore of Cornhorn. He had a dual phase crystal. So I've made it such that it switches both the blade and the crystal between the white and a light purple color. So let's try that real quick. So that's our ignition. You can see we got white in the crystal. Now when I hold aux and tap power, I don't know how well you can tell in this lighting, but it went from white to purple. You might be able to see that in the crystal chamber. It's kind of subtle. Now we're back to a silver color. Hopefully that showed up. So that's just the Cornhorn sound font with regard to color change. So again, the last preset is a battery level indicator. So
battery level.
Again, she said we were at 80-something% when we checked earlier. So you can see I'm not quite at the tip, but I'm pretty high. As this degrades the battery level, it will get closer and closer to the hilt. It will change from this color to a yellow to a red. You may also experience speaker crackle. Nothing to be worried about. Just recharge your battery and you'll get back to normal operations. Chances are you'll hear that before you actually see this go down into red or this go from the green to a red color. Just depends on what you're doing with the saber. If you're in a blade style that's quite demanding or a sound font that's pulling a lot of power from the battery, then you might start to crackle. Again, it's nothing to worry about. You just got to charge the saber.
Starfall.
So that covers most of it. Again, there's a lot more I'm not showing, like lightning block, a bunch of edit mode features that I don't really get into because it can be cumbersome on the Saber. But that's your main functionality. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Again, I encourage you to refer to the printout as well as the website that's linked on there before you reach out, because chances are there's either a video that's already been uploaded or an explanation in the website going through all of the modifications. So yeah, that's the Saber. Thanks to Nick for allowing me to do this. I had fun. These are really easy to do for the most part because Nick really thinks about his installers when he puts these parts together. And we have a chassis design that's pretty robust. So again, when we're ready, we'll turn the switch off and you'll notice the light went out. One thing I did not mention is the crystal chamber and the Saber itself, if you've got this on the shelf, will kind of automatically turn off after 10 minutes. So it's not a deep sleep, but it is kind of a way to save some power. So if you left this on the shelf and forgot about it, and the power drains, you'll start to get alerts from the battery, and it might be really low. You'll hear it off in another room. Just pull the grip off, turn the switch off. But if you did want to just keep it on a shelf and then pick it up, you need a button press to wake it back up, and then it will start to respond to gesture controls and stuff like that. So again, that's not a deep sleep, but it is a way to save some battery. But again, you've got real immediate access to your kill switch on the crystal side here. Just unscrew the grip, turn your kill switch on and off, and you're good to go. So thanks again for checking it out. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoy this Saber.